in those early days, as somebody who's played a lot of laser tag and obviously understands strategy inside out at your mature age, where was strategy at in those first few tournaments, 97, 98, 96? But a lot of people don't realize that in the 90s, when we were playing these tournaments for the first time, we were creating the sport. Every year there'd be new moves you hadn't seen before. Like you'll be learning off players from the East Coast be learning off players from the West Coast. When we played you guys in 2009, that's where you taught us the claw grip on the phaser.
Flip fire,
yeah, and we took that to the next nationals in Darwin and started slaying people with it. And now it's like a standard part of the way everybody plays in Australia. So even in the 2000s, that was happening. But in the 90s, it was happening like from one tournament to the next here in Australia anyway. So tell me a bit about what the evolution of the strategy was in the day. What did you guys create? Any pieces that are still part of it? Yeah, come on, show off, mate.
Yeah, baby, I got you. So the flip fire really came in when the V5 systems came into play. You could do like the swiping, sweeping action. So for us, so I'll explain kind of where it came out of it for me. So for me, the grip that you're talking about is we call it flip fire. You can do it two ways. You can do it by pulling this way and then flipping this way and pulling with your thumb, or you could do it in reverse and shoot it this way. So depending on how you want to go high or if you want to go low, there's two different ways of doing the flip fire. But in Vegas, like I mentioned before, you had a base that had two partitions and you had to have a lefty and a righty inside to defend it. So when we didn't have a lot of lefties on the team, so we had to figure out a way of defending the left side of the partition when you're righty. And back in the day, in the East Coast, one of the big things that they used to do is they used to do something called wall hugging, which you would take your hands up like this. You would kind of put your head over the shoulder and then lean over the wall and hide your laser. And then when they would come, you would just kind of shoot over the wall like that.
That's essentially how Australians play now.
Okay, perfect. So this was way back in the day, and that's how they played the East Coast, because you couldn't defend, the wall any other way if you're a righty. Well, we learned a long time ago that you had to, you had to figure out how to shoot lefties. So we kind of just developed this flip fire. We just held the laser like this, and now it's just a matter of just reaching out and pulling the trigger and just kind of being accurate with more or less like your body's aiming, not really your hands, because it's really inaccurate when you swipe your hands. So you use your body to reach out and get the shot. So that's where like flip fire kind of started originally in Vegas because of the way the partitions were. Now, I personally started inventing like the over-the-top flip fire because I started having issues with lefties that would lean on me. And because I was shorter and smaller, when these lefties would go back and lean on me, if I would to reach for it, they would just, take the chest, and I wouldn't be able to hit them because they're leaning too far back. And if I would go for the back, they would still have advantage. So I learned earlier on, because we had several bigger players that were lefties on the team, that I had a real hard time. So I started doing this crazy like flipping thing with the laser and then spinning into it. And then I'd start to catch the chest every single time or catch the back every single time. So for me, those are things that were kind of developed in more of like a one-on-one inside the vesting room brawls or playing around partitions and things of that nature. Now, as far as strategies go, strategies were very, very important. We had in Vegas, I think it was 10-man teams. So we had, 3 guys defending the base, 2 would be inside, 1 would be outside. Then you would have your 3-man offense that would be, going on offense and doing their thing. And then you would have 3 people that would go upstairs and play the rafters, 1, defensively, 1 offensively, and 1 kind of control. So we did have tons of strategies as far as, the Vegas stuff went. When we went to other sites, it was the same concept. We'd have anywhere between 7 to 10 player teams. This was before we dropped down to 5, because back 5 is a real small number. I don't mind it, but for back in the day, like 10 was normal, 7 was normal. We even had like 12-man team tournaments at one point.
You had much bigger arenas as well back then.
Yeah. Right? And the East Coast had the bigger arenas with more packs. The West Coast still had 20-something packs. Portland had a lot of packs up there as well.
So you'd have 20-something teams playing of 10, 12 players. So you'd have like 200-300 people at these tournaments, essentially. Well,
the Virginia Beach tournaments where we had like the 12-man teams, they were smaller. There might have been like 10 teams or 9 teams. Yep. Nationals was always, I think Nationals, I want to say was 8 or 9, maybe 10, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly how many. Let me see if I can pull a roster from somewhere. 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, it was 10-man rosters for sure.
Gosh, I mean, so when you're talking about strategy, like there would have been another level of complexity on top of what we're talking about now.
Yeah, so we always had like 3 rotations. So I come from so for my era, like we always focused on 3 rotations. We had, the rotation that was attacking, that attack rotation would then either go back to base D and then stay on base D for the rest of the time, and then the base D would then go on offense and get their bases, and then they would then rotate upstairs, and then the upstairs team would then go down and get their bases. Sometimes the upstairs team was like, a lot of it was kind of like, see if you can sneak it and do it on your own kind of thing and find your opportunity, because players are smart enough once they understand and can read the arena and read numbers. Laser tag is really simple. It's about reading packs. If you're a good player, you can look in an area and see the numbers and go, okay, this is where I want to be, or say, no, this isn't good enough for me. I need to go somewhere where there's more packs, more points.
Yeah.
And
did you guys have denials back then? Do you guys have denial scoring?
Yes.
Denial scoring from the start.
Yeah, so we had comp scoring. So the way it worked is you would put 1 shot into the base, you'd lose 500 points, put another shot into the base, lose 500 points, put the 3rd shot into the base, lose 500 points, and secure the base. But the base was worth 4,500, but you only got 35 for tagging it or whatever, or 3,000, sorry, for tagging it.
Yeah.
However, if you put 500, and then somebody comped you, then you would, the next time the base value just dropped by 1,000 if you went for it again. And eventually, if you getting comped, there wasn't like the now points where the other team was getting points for stopping you. They were just getting punished more and more and getting themselves more and more into negatives if they kept trying to go for the base. So you knew after a certain amount of times, if you got comps, cut your losses. You're not gonna, you're not gonna win ahead at this point. You've already lost a lot of points. You can make up 500 points in packs really easy in an arena with that many, with 20 opponents, right? It's not hard to hit 5 chests. That's you hit 5 chests, that's 1,000 points. You make up your difference there really quickly. And I think sometimes people didn't understand that concept either. Like, people overvaluate bases or underevaluate bases at times. Like, you really have to understand what's happening in the game and when the bases become really valuable. Because if you have a lot of teams that are defending the bases and nobody's getting bases because the bases are so hard to get, the importance now becomes on getting pack points and focusing you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to make up the difference of that base by sitting here and hitting X amount of packs before I move on to do the next thing. So, there was a lot of development. So for us back then, the strategies were very, very intense. They're very, strategic. They're very oriented. And we always had people that were in like group leaders, right? So you had your offensive leader. I'm sure you have now. You have your offensive leader and your defensive leader, kind of, right? Well, before we had our offensive leader, defensive leader, and then our roaming group or a support group or upstairs team, whatever you want to call it, right? There's always 3 groups and they rotated around.